All right, folks, welcome to another edition of Manufacturing Growth Talks. I'm your host, Dan Burgos. And if this is your first time tuning in, what we do is we interview manufacturing executives and we go back down memory lane, talk about their journey, what they've accomplished, the lessons they've learned, the stories that shape our leadership style and our experience and so forth, in the hopes that and in every case happens, there's multiple nuggets of wisdom and knowledge that we gain from this, and the idea is to share with the listeners. Today, I'm joined by someone that has, you know, a number of years under their belt, very experienced executive in manufacturing. He's been involved with private equity, with business turnarounds, automotive, you name it. So a lot of stories to dive in. His name is Dan Lowe. And so join me and welcome him. Dan, thanks for joining me. Welcome.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Right. Good stuff. So the first thing I'll ask you is, well, first of all, thank you for joining me in this conversation, of course. But I will ask you the first question is for people that are unfamiliar with Dan Lowe. Can you give us a high level what you've done, where you've been thus far in terms of your career journey?
Sure. Start with I'm a hands-on, metric-driven, lean operations guy who sets high expectations and holds people accountable. Continuous improvement is my passion, and I enjoy driving the metrics down to the individual level. I started my career at General Motors, was there for 15 and a half years. All my promotions and job changes were presented to me based on my past performance. I was also had the luxury to work next to Mr. Yamada, a Japanese sensei, for 10 of those years. When they announced Chapter 11, I started reaching out. I ended up with Ingersoll Rand. I ran a business called Steelcraft, who made hollow metal doors and frames for the commercial building industry. From there, I went to PD and Bridge for a short stint, then Dexter Axle, and then Adams Thermal Systems, and Itron, and then Plank Enterprises, and finally Armor Metal Group.
Got it. So thank you for sharing that. It sounds like your journey has been in operations and just driving efficiencies and cultures that just bring high performance to businesses. So ready to dive in. That sounds like an exciting journey. So you mentioned your first exposure, your career was in automotive. From my experience, that's always been related as a tough industry, tough, thick skin, high pressure, high performance, high expectations industry. So tell us about that when you walked in. So we heard the chapter 11 at the end, but what was that at the beginning? What was the situation there when you walked in? How was the business performing, and who were the cast of characters? Fill us in that, and then tell us about that stint.
I got to back up a little bit and tell you how I decided to target General Motors.
Interesting.
In sixth grade, it was General Motors' 75th anniversary. My dad was a millwright in one of the plants in town. They held open houses for their anniversary. So he took me through the plant, and I became absolutely fascinated with seeing raw material transformed into a finished product. So I knew in sixth grade that's the environment I wanted to be in. I also knew I didn't want to be a millwright, but I did like that environment. So I targeted GM, and it was all about cutting costs, mostly labor, but that was the focus, and that's why I went to Delphi's Lean College there, and I worked with the sensei.
Yeah, so they were trying to cut labor costs. Were they trying to increase margins because of growth or some other reason, or just capacity? What was that? What was the driving force behind that?
Well, the driving force was actually General Motors, because when we split into Delphi, GM used the sledgehammer to cut the price of our products, so we had to cut costs. That
Wow.
was our focus.
So I mean, needless to say, pressure was at a high point there. Tell us about that and how that affected the culture and how you guys operated there.
Well, as a general supervisor of production, a plant manager asked me to lead a team of engineers to design and build equipment to make struts in a lean fashion. Uh, we were able to do that. We combined the reservoir assembly, the strut rod assembly, um, together with the final assembly, and we duplicated that line 6 times. It cut all kinds of material costs out and labor costs. It became the showplace of Delphi in North America for lean.
Wow, that's amazing. So what results you saw from that? So if you duplicate, it sounds like you got amazing results. Did you, I guess, anything tangible you can share from that?
Yeah,
Efficiency, margins, or whatever other?
a 40% reduction in material,
Okay.
inventory levels, 20% improvement in productivity, and a 10% reduction in total labor count.
That's amazing. Those are drastic numbers. So tell me about what it took to do that, because a lot of times we talk about, we change this, we change that, but I feel like at the heart of it, it's people coming together, getting aligned on the same page, sometimes dealing with people that are being saboteurs or whatever the case. Tell me about that with the team dynamic. How was that? What did it took to actually get those results?
So it took some product redesign. In the past, we would take the cylinder tube, put a base cup in it, and then you had a special machine that would machine that base cup into that. We replaced that with a form closure, spin form closure. It would take the material and just form it and weld it together. So eliminated the welding operation and eliminated the base cup. We also redesigned how we gas charged the strut. We used to have an additional operation where we would machine a slot near the top of the rod, and the machine would push that rod halfway through the seal, put the gas in it, and then pull the strut out. Well, we found a technology that would drill a hole in the side, put the gas in, and then it would press a BB in there for sealing. So those are the two of the product changes we made to allow us to make those improvements.
Oh, that's amazing. Any challenges in accomplishing that? Any setbacks? Anything that presented a challenge? As I said.
Um, well, yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of challenges. The timing on the equipment, the equipment manufacturer was late on delivery. Um, uh, we introduced autophoretic paint, which was new to us. So we had a learning curve there. We also, for this, it was called SR 2000. That project, we negotiated a new contract for that area with the local union. So I had to go out and hire new people at reduced wages, which is always a challenge in hiring new people and getting them trained. I mean, it was a rough 18 months at working 7 days a week type of thing.
I gotcha. And so when you're doing that, you're raising the bar, you're bringing new people, and I find that a lot of times people present a bigger challenge in accepting and learning, sometimes pushing back. Did you face any of that when you guys were going through that transition?
I suppose there was some. Um, It was more of a challenge keeping all the engineers on the same page. Everybody had their own opinion, and it was herding sheep. Get them back in the room, sit down, discuss, identify the best option, and get everybody to agree and buy into it. That was probably one of the biggest challenges.
When you get in a room and you have a lot of smart people and they're trying to accomplish something, everybody's got their own perspective or opinion. How are you guys able to come together and kind of overcome those obstacles?
I'm data driven, so I present the data. It speaks for itself.
I got it. Got it. I gotcha. So you did that. I know you were Delphi for a number of years. Once you guys turned that around, you replicated it, became the showcase for that organization. Where'd you go next? What was your next stop in your journey? What was your next big stop?
Well, when I left Delphi, I went to Ingersoll Rand. They they owned a business called Steelcraft. They made hollow metal doors and frames for the commercial building industry. And they had purchased that business 3 years prior to me coming on board, and they were in the red all 3 years.
Oh, okay, got it. So that was a turnaround situation, definitely.
That was a turnaround. First thing it is, I put metrics in place. They didn't have any metrics, so put those in place, and it was very obvious that the business problem there was on-time delivery and quality.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's where I intended on focusing. 3 weeks after being there, we had our annual distributor advisory board meeting where our top 100 customers come in and we discuss the business. And every single one of them complained about on-time delivery and quality. So just reconfirm my metrics. Anyhow, I ask a lot of questions. That's how I learn. Diving into the root cause, it became very apparent that we did not have an effective scheduling tool. The way the schedulers would perform their job is they receive an order from a customer. They would put a due date on it on Friday, 4 weeks out, and then they would release it to the floor. And operations had the luxury of running whatever they wanted, whenever they wanted, as long as they hit that Friday date. Now, the problem with that is our customers pay for freight. So they're set up in freight lanes. So each truck has the same customers on it every week. And if all those customers' orders don't come together at the same time, I can't ship that truck. So what was occurring is I was shipping maybe 1 or 2 trucks during the week. I had the entire shipping department in here every Saturday and Sunday to get the trucks out.
Right.
It was crazy. And because those orders didn't come together at the same time, they're constantly shuffling this material around the plant. And that's when you cause damage. And that's where the quality came in. So I formed a team and tasked them to create a scheduling tool that took in consideration not only our customer freight lanes, but also our internal lead times. Doors were around 4 weeks, things around 2 weeks. So after 3 revisions of the scheduling system, things started to look very good. As a matter of fact, I recall 1 week we hit 100%, and Martha, who was my shipping clerk, she's been there for over 30 years. She walked around the plant passing out candy bars to everybody. First time in history they've ever hit 100%. So on the next annual distributor advisory board meeting, I actually received a standing ovation from my customers, which has made me feel very good.
Oh, that's amazing.
So after 8 months, we made a profit. And because of the on-time delivery and the quality improvements, also redesigned a mullion that was over-designed and over-cost. I was able to double the size of that business, which actually afforded me the opportunity to design and build a 3rd facility in Swanee, Georgia.
Nice. And those are amazing results. So tell me, going in, I know you mentioned off camera that you've been involved in a few turnarounds. What in your mind going in, just from people that may be in that situation listening to this, like what's your mindset going in to understand really what the issues are and you're not addressing the wrong thing, wasting time and resources?
You got to start with metrics. You got to understand the heartbeat of the organization. Where are the biggest opportunities? What can you make the biggest impact on to improve the business the most?
Got it. Okay. And then you said you tasked a team. I like hearing that. Sometimes we want to, if we're hands-on leaders, we want to jump in and do it ourselves. But I actually respect and admire that you actually recognize I need to get a team, they need to own it and what have you. How did they were accustomed to functioning the way they were functioning. How did you get them focused? How did you get them to collaborate and be effective at, solving the problem you tasked them with?
Well, I gave them suggestions and ideas from what I have learned in my past. I also had weekly reviews with them. They'd update me on where they are. And if I had to make a correctional change or directional change, I would do that.
Got it. And then tell me about what, like, some of the things to watch out as you're progressing through a turnaround, things that maybe someone going in is not aware of that during a turnaround might flare up, or things that are present in a turnaround that you may not know of. Hopefully something actionable for people that can take from listening.
Well, here's a perfect example. The same company we're talking about, it was a union shop, and I was making my rounds. I was actually walking the outside perimeter of the building, and I see maintenance guy polishing his chrome wheels on his car. So I got the maintenance manager over there, and I said, "What's wrong with this picture?" He didn't have a clue. See, he was okay with the guy doing personal work on company time. So
Right.
we had to go through a cultural change there. And I was happy to say that when I announced I was leaving Delphi, I had 12 previous employees call me up and wanted to come work for me again. So I hired them, and they helped me with the culture change.
That's great. I think a lot of times I see people that they've been in one place for so long, they don't know what good really is. And
Right.
sometimes it's effective to bring people from the outside that have seen what good or great really looks like. And it's almost like peer pressure is more powerful than leader pressure, right? Because it's like, it's not talk, it's being done and leading by example. So that was a good tactic. Anything else in terms of things to watch out for when you're in a turnaround that could be a challenge?
Well, in this case, the other issue they had is, again, back to being part of the culture. If a situation came up, they would address that situation with that particular customer, but they wouldn't dig down to find the root cause and fix the problem. So it would happen again and again and again. Prime example, we outsourced our final paint. We did up the priming paint, but we outsourced the final paint. And engineering is the one that apparently I found this out after asking a series of questions again. Engineering is one that found the supplier, didn't collaborate with supply chain or the scheduling department. Um, they had a capacity of X amount of doors a week, and the scheduling department didn't know that. So they were scheduling whatever they wanted, and it was impacting our on time delivery. So once we understood what the capacity was, we could schedule our customers' orders differently to hit their on time delivery. That's just one example.
Gotcha. So I think that every stop in our journey, there are lessons that we take. There are things that we carry on to our next stop. So what what lessons did you draw from that experience and going through that, culture change, a journey of a turnaround and so forth?
I would say consistent and repetitive communication. Um, I'm very big, like I said earlier, with metrics, showing the numbers. When I show people numbers, they tend to buy into it better than just talk. Explain to them, show them the numbers, and I tend to get their buy-in pretty quickly.
I gotcha. And another thing that I was going to ask you was how critical is to have leaders support, like senior leadership support or ownership if you're dealing with private equity or a family company type of situation. How critical is that for you?
It's very important. I've been in a situation where I didn't have that and I left.
Yeah, I think it's my experience has been a make or break. If the owner is not, or the senior leaders are not on board, or not, their conviction is not strong enough, eventually things will go south and ultimately will not be successful. That's been my experience. Right. Okay. So you turned around that place, got amazing results, changed a culture, brought new blood that really changed that culture. Where'd you go next after that? What was your next big stop?
Well, next big stop I really want to talk about is Itron. Itron, we made gas meters and regulators for the utility companies. This was another turnaround. Again, first thing I did is put metrics in place. They weren't there, and it was obvious turnover was a problem. I mean, it was
Employee turnover.
Employee turnover. It was over 50%. It was horrendous.
Yeah, that's high.
And I'm sure you're well aware if your turnover is that bad, every other metric's bad. Health and safety, quality, delivery. So walking through the facility, it dawned on me, I'm looking at the people. They're not looking back. They're not smiling. They're not talking to one another. I had a morale problem here. I had a serious morale problem that I had to fix if I'm going to improve these metrics. So I handpicked 6 hourly and 6 salaried employees to be a part of the team, and I tasked them with identifying tasks and activities that we could put in play to improve morale. I think we came up with 12. I mean, some of the stuff is pretty simple. I painted the ceiling and the walls. I put skylights in. I piped music into the plant. I put a staff cafeteria. That was a 24/7 operation. I put TV monitors in to help better communicate. We had a fair where their employees' family could come in and walk through the facility. I changed our onboarding process, and I made it a wage adjustment. And all of those really improved. I mean, we were we were in single digit turnover eventually by those improvements. And one day I was driving, I forget, it was home or into work. I heard a commercial on the radio, Cincinnati Inquirer's Best Places to Work Challenge. So I called them up. I didn't come in, and we took that survey. Results came back. We were number 8. However, number 1 through number 7 were either banks or real estate companies. We were the top manufacturer. I was very proud to hang that banner on the outside of that building.
That's pretty great. That's pretty great. So, none of the things you mentioned are like capital improvement, expenses or investments. It's not a big machine or big lathe, a big drill or some saw, big equipment, but they were intentful and impactful. And I think that a lot of times leaders in our industry feel like things like that are not tangible. They're pie in the sky things. And in reality, those are the things that really make a business. It's their people.
Exactly.
And so walking in, can you share some of your, because I was impressed with your ability to see, without data, without talking, just the nonverbal communication of the culture, which requires emotional intelligence, attentiveness, intentfulness, and knowing what you're looking for. So can you share with us, when you're doing that, you're not looking at data, this is not the technical aspect of a turnaround. What is it you're looking for, and what's the mindset someone should go in if they're looking to understand what is that culture fabric is made of?
Well, Mr. Yamada, again, back in Delphi and GM days, he taught me a lot about lean. I learned a lot, and he would stand in one spot for 10 minutes and give you 10 things to do to improve the place. And I've learned a lot of what he has taught, and I do a lot of walking around the facility, interacting with people, asking them questions. I'm always looking for roadblocks. I'm looking for excess material. I'm looking for people standing around. So I'm always looking for waste, but I'm also interacting with the employees. And when it's a struggle to pull questions or answers out of people, it's a sure tell sign that something's wrong.
Right, because they're afraid, they're holding back, uh, skeptic of maybe even trusting you with what their real thoughts are.
Possibly.
Yeah. In terms of, I don't know, I guess so you see the employees, but how about the leaders? Is there anything you look there? Because I think a lot of the behaviors from the employees are highly influenced by the leaders that are, giving them direction. Any words of wisdom there for when you're looking at that aspect of the business?
Yeah. So in my last role, um, I'm attempting to drive metrics down to the individual level. And there's a lot of process things you've got to improve on to get to that point. But and I did all that. We formed the teams, we redesigned the work orders, we got them down to small buckets. I was able to extract data out of our ERP system to give every employee a report card every week that showed them how they performed the prior week. Anyhow, it took longer than I expected because my direct reports were resisting. And it took me time to bring them along, to get them on board, understand the value behind what I was attempting to do. But once I got them on board, um, they did a very good job of implementing the next step, which was handing those employees a report card. And it got to the point, I mean, the employees didn't like it at first, obviously, but it got to the point that if they didn't have that report card by 10 o'clock on a Monday morning, they'd look me down and where's my report card? They wanted it. They wanted to know how they did it.
I think that's part of a high performing culture, people that are self accountable. Like the people that are not self accountable, they want to hide in plain sight. They want things to be collective or hide within everybody else's contributions. But the people that really want to contribute, they want to know at the individual level, okay, how am I doing? Tell me yes or no, so I know what to improve and what to focus on. And I think that speaks to that culture being that way.
I got to tell you, by doing that plus other process improvements that we've made during the same time period, productivity improved by over 25%.
That's great. Yeah. And so let me ask you about that, because you've done that a number of times. When you're trying to get your team to buy in, I think everybody runs into this. People start pushing back. I don't agree. I don't think that's the right thing to do. What are some of the mindsets and strategies that have worked for you in getting your team to go where you want them, where you're trying to lead them?
I like to, a lot of times, explain to them a story of in my past, the situation, what I did, why I did it, and what the results are. And hopefully, it's similar situation here, and that tends to help them understand the reason why and what the expected results are.
Got it. Okay, good stuff. All right, so you've done a couple of turnarounds. Sounds like you're well versed, established with doing turnarounds. Is that something you enjoy? Do you enjoy turning a business around? Tell us about that.
It's a lot of fun. It's rewarding. Uh, it's a challenge, but I don't back down from challenges. I really enjoy that. I enjoy seeing metrics move in the right direction.
Right.
That's my passion.
I gotcha. And I feel, can you give us I don't know, a handful of really good lessons you learned from your, I'm gonna call them sensei, right? As people call the uh, Japanese folks that have taught a lot of us on the shop floor, in the trenches. Any few words of wisdoms that you really influence your leadership style, how you function, that people can benefit from listening to?
Yeah, there's two of them I recall right offhand. I like to inspect what I expect, meaning to go to the floor and verify yourself what you're being told. Not because you don't trust who's telling you, but there may have been a miscommunication between what you expected and what they gave you. And the other one is there's one best way of doing everything until you discover a new best way. I've had multiple situations, multiple plants doing the same work, and I would visit, and all three plants were doing it differently. So there's one best way of doing a task. Make sure everybody's doing it the same way. And then once everybody's doing it the same way, you can refine that and possibly find a better way of doing it.
Right. Yes. I learned that early in my journey too. It's tremendously valuable. Good one. All right. So tell us where'd you go next? What was your next big stop there?
Uh, let's say Dexter Axle. I ran the chassis side of the business, not the axles and chassis. Uh,
So back to
we had,
automotive products.
yeah, for RV, but yes, we had a plant in Michigan that built the fifth wheels, and we had a plant in Indiana, Elkhart, that did most of the fabrication, and also had a large E-coat dip paint system. We were shipping those fifth wheel frames stacked three high down to Indiana, unrack them, put them on the rack, put the rack on the paint line, paint them, and then did the reverse and ship them back up to Michigan for final assembly. Well, I spent quite a bit of time at our customers, and I ask a lot of questions. That's how I learned, and I discovered that they really only cared about the tongue being E-coated. They didn't care about the chassis that was under the coach. So that gave me an idea. I said, "Holy cow! I can change our entire manufacturing process up and change and save a bunch of material handling, a bunch of labor." So I started making the tongues and paint them in Indiana. Ship the tongues up to Michigan in a box truck, and they did the final assembly. I saved 40% of labor costs in making those fifth wheel frames.
Oh my gosh, that's
Just
tremendous.
just by listening to the customer.
Have you done work in design? And I was and then if you have, or maybe if you haven't, maybe you still can answer this. But what are some of the things that you've noticed that are opportunities that people miss, or things that people could do better in the design environment, because a lot of us, are working in the shop or working with the manufacturing function, but there's a lot of opportunity also in the design before it even gets, introduced or rolled out as a new product into manufacturing.
Yeah, in my last role here, the engineers, they they didn't understand fabrication. They don't understand how things go together. And their designs were reflective of that. Um, so, and we had 7 different value streams of 7 different products. And what I started doing is we made standards. Like for example, on the mixer, we made mixers for a Tesla. Uh, our door hinges and our door locks became standard. The sequence at which we weld, and there's a lot of full pin welds on this. They were originally welding the outside 7 passes on the end caps, and then they were going inside and full pin and welding 6 passes. Well, you got to weld in position, so every time you got to rotate that that mixer, and it took a lot of time to do that. So I changed the process so that they would weld inside and a guy outside at the same time. They weld in position, and then they would rotate it, weld in position. It saved like 570 hours of material handling time.
Got it. That's amazing. And so, any, I guess, mindsets or principles you follow when it comes to improving that side of the house, where you're looking at the signs, like, do I look for this? Do I look for that? Just like you do in manufacturing, but on the design side.
I in my spare time, I'm a woodworker. I'm always putting things together, building things. So I'm always, when I look at a print, engineer design print, I'm thinking to myself, okay, if this was wood and not steel, how would I go about making this thing? And most times than not, it's going to be the same sequence of steps. But I'm always, I guess that's how I relate to things. Visualize them. How would I put this thing together?
Nice. Okay, so we've covered quite a bit of your journey. We're winding down here. Any last stops that you made that were really impactful in your journey?
I'm looking for my last stop. I want a 15-year career with an exciting product, a company who values continuous improvement, and a company who truly values their employees.
Got it, guys. Whoever's listening, and or are looking, I think Dan, as you listen, not because I'm only saying it, but because you're seeing it yourself, the place he's been, the things he's accomplished, and the results he's gotten for other people. And I did want to ask you, what can you give us like a little bit into the mind of Dan Lowe? Like, what are your operating mindsets? Like, what are some non-negotiable principles for you as a leader, building people together, turning around businesses, and really driving, meaningful results for businesses?
A couple things. I don't do well with unethical behavior at all. It's a pet peeve of mine if somebody makes the same mistake twice, because that means they didn't learn the first time. And every day, I want to make the place better than it was yesterday.
Right. Good stuff. Any, as we wind down, I guess, I think I asked you, any leaders, any books or anything that influenced you, that maybe there's a lesson there we haven't covered yet that you'd want to share with others?
The biggest influence in my professional career was Mr. Yamada. He would come to the plant 1 week every quarter. We did that for 10 years, and I learned something from him every single time he was there, and I use it every day.
Still to this day, years and years later.
Absolutely.
That's great. So, in winding down now, Dan, if people want to get a hold of you, can you share maybe where are you based out of, and what's the best place that to get a hold of you if people want to connect with you?
Yeah, I'm in Waynesville, Ohio. I've got a LinkedIn profile. My phone number's there. My email's there. Feel free to reach out. Absolutely. I'm open to relocation. I mean, you heard the 4 things I'm looking for in my next career.
All right, Dan, thank you so much for taking the time and doing this. I hope you find your next opportunity soon. You know, from what I've known and learned from you, any manufacturing business looking to drive growth profitably and sustainably would be lucky to have you. So there you have it, folks. We learned about turnarounds. We learned about culture. We learned about leadership, continuous improvement, and so forth. Dan, thank you again for doing this. And if you're listening to this and you like to share your journey, you have some opinions, you have some lessons that others can benefit, please reach out. We'd love to have a conversation with you and share your journey. All right, till next time, folks. Thanks again.